Hannah Murray on TRE in the afternoon.
Joining us on the line now is Anna Donaghey. She's an alcohol mindset coach and host of the Big Drink Rethink, a podcast aimed to encourage people to talk openly and honestly about alcohol. Her book, What Are You Thirsty For?, blends personal experience, coaching insights and stories from her podcast, offering thought-provoking perspectives to help turn alcohol from a habit default into a conscious, empowered choice. Welcome to the show, Anna.
Hi, thank you for having me, Hannah. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, it's great to have you with us. Thank you for joining us. So before we talk a bit more about your book, can you just tell us a little bit about your journey? You stopped drinking 6 years ago, is that right?
Yeah, about 6 years ago, after an incredibly illustrious drinking career. I began drinking when I was about 15 and stopped drinking when I was about 50. And for a good chunk of that time, I experienced problems with drinking. I was, got myself in a bit of a pickle, found myself in a place of dependence, certainly emotional dependence, and very much ensconced in all the problems that I now help coach other people through. So a heavy drinker for a large chunk of my life, yeah.
So do you find that a lot of people that you help have similar issues and are going through the same things that you experienced?
It really varies. I've worked with hundreds of people. The thing that they have in common is that they drink. What they don't necessarily have in common is how much they drink. So I do work with very heavy drinkers who would say that they're in an addicted space where they are highly dependent, and it's looming large for vast chunks of the day. But where I find most people sit are in the sort of the grey area. It's where the majority of drinkers sit, to be honest, Hannah, which is a space in life where alcohol may not be creating great chaos. It may not be, blowing life apart as such. It's not destroying your life necessarily, but it's not exactly serving it either. So a lot of the people I work with and a lot of drinkers in this country, in the UK and in the Western world, are high functioning, but they're also exhausted and they're coping and sort of getting by without realizing. Yeah. So that's where the vast majority sit.
Yeah, I suppose a lot of people don't think or identify that they necessarily have a problem with alcohol, and they're not necessarily drinking alcohol in order to feel better or to have a good time. It just becomes a habit, I think, for a lot of people. They associate it with going out and socializing or celebrating something that's happened in their life, or, going to the pub with their friends. The idea of going and not drinking alcohol, I guess, would be foreign to a lot of people.
Absolutely. And you talk about people not identifying. That is very much the problem, because we have a very clear view. We have a very clear stereotype of what a problem drinker looks like. And for many, many people, that's not their lived experience. Thankfully, a small number of people, a small percentage of people are the ones who we would say are, sitting on the streets, drinking alcohol in ways that we can't comprehend and just not functioning at all without it. And that's what we would label a problem drinker, whereas for many people drinking is a problem and it has become problematic in many parts of their lives, but they fly under the radar because they don't kind of fit that binary definition of normal drinker versus problem drinker. They're not presenting all the kind of terrible traits of someone who just can't hold it all together. The thing is, they're holding it together very well.
Yeah.
But underneath, it's a story of, as I said, sort of exhaustion is one sort of clear trait. Conflict, feeling a little bit adrift, knowing that alcohol probably isn't serving them, but not quite sure what to do about it.
Yeah.
So that's where I call it the messy middle. That's not supposed to be derogatory to anyone, but it does it's the grey area. It's the grey area. It's not so black and white. And having a black and white view isn't serving the vast majority of drinkers.
Yeah. It's a different sort of lifestyle in Europe. I live in Spain and have done for over 20 years. And the way that the Spanish view alcohol compared to in the UK, I think is very different. You know, there's a bit more of a binge culture in the UK. The pubs used to shut early and everybody was in a bit of a rush to have as much to drink as possible before the pubs shut. That was my experience growing up, and I think it's very different in Spain and other parts of Europe, because bars and things are open a lot later. There isn't that rush. People go out later, they stay out later, and also alcohol's kind of brought into family meals a lot more than maybe they might be in the UK. So people tend to have a different relationship with alcohol. So for people who are drinking regularly, but maybe not drinking to excess, not doing that binge drinking at the weekend, that must be really difficult to identify whether there's any sort of issues going on if you're not constantly getting drunk and you're just enjoying having a glass of wine on a regular basis.
Yeah, it is a very different society. It's a very different culture, and you're absolutely right about the drinking culture in the UK. It's sort of hard and fast, and that's very, very largely the sort of the social conditioning, as you say. Historically, alcohol in pubs and early pub closing has defined a more kind of hurry up drinking mentality, whereas it's more ingrained in families, in the family dynamic in countries such as Spain. It's not consumed with the same level of urgency. And I think the thing that I think defines a problem, and this is the crux of it really, is whether it is taking away from your life in any shape or form. Now, if you're going out and binge drinking at the weekend, the chances are you're waking up with hangovers. Yeah. You may have had blackouts. Drinking fast and drinking hard creates those kind of problems which are undeniably going to start taking a toll, and it's hard to ignore those kind of issues in your relationship with drinking. But even in societies where it's slower and less urgent, it's still worth questioning, does drinking in the way that I drink only make me happy? Or are there moments or are there aspects of my life where I can see it's creating a problem, and let's call these problems with a little p, ruptures in relationships, financial challenges, alcohol's expensive at the end of the day, a loss of self-esteem, a dimming of ambition, a fragmented relationship, be it, with partner, spouse or children. All of these things can creep up, not through crazy sort of chaotic drinking, but just over time. Yeah. And if this happens, this is very much about, just looking at your relationship and saying, does it make me happy? Is my life good enough? And actually, that is the question, isn't it? Because if you kind of can honestly look at your relationship with alcohol and say it's fine, and my life's good, and it's where I want it to be, and I'm who I want to be, doing what I want to do, then great. But if you do that kind of life audit and you come to a conclusion that aspects of your life aren't quite where you would like them to be, I just urge within my podcast, my book, my coaching to sort of ask the question as to whether alcohol's got anything to do with that. Because it can very easily creep in and affect us in ways that we just weren't really expecting.
Yeah. I think the word habit is an interesting one as well, because people might convince themselves that that they're not drinking too much if, as I say, if they're not binge drinking or not drinking to excess even, but are just having one glass of wine or one beer every night. So they're regular drinkers, but they're not drinking to get drunk. So therefore they think, well, that's fine. I just have a glass of wine a night. That's no problem. But it's the fact that when that glass of wine becomes a habit, they feel like they need that glass of wine with dinner. Otherwise it's, not a proper dinner if you're not having a glass of wine with it or whatever. It's getting into that habit and routine that's just as normal as brushing your teeth twice a day, having to have that glass of wine with your dinner. That's habits aren't good, really, are they?
Yeah, well, they serve us very well in positive situations where that autopilot stops us having to, spend energy thinking about banal things in life.
Yeah, sure.
Like the order in which we get up, brush our teeth and put our pants on.
Yeah, that's true. There are good habits, of course.
Yeah, of course. But when habits such as drinking begin to be autopilot, such that they're unquestioned, then they literally just become part of what we do. And as I say, they slip under the radar in an unquestioned way. It's just what I do. It's just who I am. It's what I do. And that can create a problem, not least of all, because, unlike brushing your teeth, alcohol is addictive.
Yeah.
So if you drink every day and alcohol is addictive, you can become, dependent on it, let's say. And therein lies a bit of a growing problem then. Because, and I suppose the thing that I would urge here is, we know when something's a habit, because if you remove it, it can feel a bit odd, like your life is out of sync and things aren't quite working in the order of events has changed. But if it's a dependency and you take it out of the equation, it feels like something's really missing. It feels like something that you need is no longer there, which is quite a good test, because I could coach somebody who drinks 16 pints a night or 16 bottles of beer a night and would say, I don't have a problem and I'm not dependent on it. But then I can coach someone who just drinks 2 glasses of wine a night. But if I asked them not to, it would bring about huge anxiety and a clear level of emotional dependence. I have to have it. I need it. I can't relax without it. It's my unwind. It's my reward. It's my treat. What do you mean I can't have it?
I've worked hard all day.
I've worked hard all day, for goodness sake. This is me time. No, don't tell me I can't have my drink. And then I guess, rather politely, I would say, well, that sounds like a little bit more than maybe a habit.
Yeah.
But it's gentle, the inquiry has to be gentle, because our relationship around alcohol is sensitive. We've been told for years and years and years by advertising industries and the drinks industry that it's absolutely permissible to have alcohol in our life, both for celebrations, commiserations, stress relief, everything. So it is not our fault if we have got to a place with it, perhaps, where our relationship with it is a little bit awkward.
Yeah.
It's not our fault at all. So it's all about just gentle awareness and just thinking, why do I want this? How will I feel if I can't have it? What's that saying about my relationship with alcohol?
Yeah. Absolutely. And I want to ask you about your podcast, the Big Drink Rethink. I know you've had quite a few high-profile guests over the years on the show. What difference does it make, do you think, for normal folk listening to celebrities and people who have had or are having similar issues to them?
I think it helps normalise things. I think the vulnerability of anybody who comes onto the show and can talk with real honesty and openness about, their own challenges as far as alcohol is concerned, and, point out to people what helps them at moments when they were trying to, sort out their relationship with alcohol. That can only be a good thing. And it can only be a good thing that, it helps looking at life without alcohol altogether, or, severely reducing your intake if you're a very heavy drinker. It can only help by making it a bit more aspirational, really.
Yeah.
And certainly, and this was the whole intention of the Big Drink Rethink to begin with, was to make people feel a little less alone.
Yeah.
And actually part of quite a big movement. And I know that's a grandiose word, but, this is a good time to be questioning your relationship with alcohol. Not just those high-profile people, but a lot of people are beginning to think this isn't necessarily working for me anymore, and wanting to sort of cut down. And I think it genuinely helps knowing that a lot of other people are doing that too, that it's not just you.
Definitely. I've seen it myself, how it shifted in my lifetime, I suppose. Growing up, everybody smoked, it seemed, and if you didn't smoke, you were you don't smoke, you were sort of the outsider, the non-cool person. But now hardly anyone smokes, and if people smoke, it's like, can you go outside, and people don't like the smell, and it's it's frowned upon in a way that it never used to. And I feel like that's definitely happening with alcohol, or people not drinking. Years ago, if somebody didn't drink, everyone would be like, you're not drinking, why aren't you drinking? And everybody would question them and make them feel really uncomfortable. But now people generally go, oh, good for you, well done. And people are really supportive and encouraging, and start talking about their own thoughts of thinking, oh yes, I'm cutting down, or I'm thinking of cutting down. It's really interesting.
It's really lovely. And I think one of the things that really helps as well, apart from either celebrity or big names coming onto the podcast, is just whether, let's call them normal people, people like me, also just demonstrating and living the fact that life is good without drinking. And it doesn't mean deprivation. It actually means more, a more varied social life, or more energy, more sleep, more presence. All the things that had closed down when alcohol made my life feel quite small are all back in play. And that really helps people with that first step of saying, you know what, I want a bit of that. And because quite often we do need that first nudge. I love hearing the stories of people who've, left alcohol in the rearview mirror and gone on to do great things and are happier than they ever thought they could be, and wish they'd done it sort of 20 odd years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. It's reframing it. It's realizing all the things that you're gaining through not drinking alcohol, as opposed to all the things that you're losing. Yes.
And also, that is 100% true, but it's also very much about realizing that when we reach for a drink, we're asking for what we think the drink's going to give us. So the drink is the vehicle. What we're looking for is relaxation or connection, or, a solution to loneliness, or whatever it might be. So we're looking for the feeling that the drink's going to give us. When we stop drinking, we can go and find that for real. The real connections, the real friendships, the real, stress relievers. And very much part of my work with people is to, yes, I help people bring down their alcohol consumption, but the parallel path is literally, as my, book suggests, what are you thirsty for? What is it with alcohol out of the way that you want more of in your life? What have you been using it as a substitute for? Because with more energy, more time in your day, less hangovers, more clarity, more presence, you can go and get it.
Yeah. And
we can stop doing this kind of default, everybody in society behaves like this, and start thinking about what you want. And that design, that life design, is the second really big part of the puzzle, really. It's about true nourishment as opposed to that artificial variety.
Yeah. Exciting, liberating for people, I bet.
I like to think so. I really like to think so. And, you know, never have I coached anyone who's turned around and said, I wish I still drank. You know, there's
no.
Or anyone ever said, no one ever says, oh, I wish I drank more last night. It, you know, it just doesn't happen. There is joy and just a great deal more to explore on the other side of alcohol. Yeah.
Makes perfect sense. Well, if people want to get a copy of What Are You Thirsty For? Rethinking Alcohol and the Life You Want, it's available on our website, tre.radio, and it's by Anna Donaghey, who we've been chatting with today. Anna, thank you so much for joining us.
Hannah, thank you. Thank you very much indeed.